Hola guys, ¿qué pasa? What's going on? Thank you for tuning in. This is Hala Pablo. Let's look at Algorand. Algorand. Yesterday we looked at Zcash. Today we're going to look at Algorand because it's in a fantastic place right now for me. None of these videos constitute financial advice. I hope you know that by now. This is just what I do. And you're welcome to piggyback some of the things I do at your own risk. And so investing or dollar cost averaging or swing trading or momentum driving, whatever your thing is, there's always an inherent risk involved. But I believe, hodling or DCAing or swing trading certain cryptos long term, thinking like looking out long term for coins like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Zcash, and Algorand, which we're going to do today, are well worth the reward is well worth the risk involved. And so a coin like Algorand, especially where we are right now, you could pick up extremely cheap. So let's look at some of the technical analysis of Algorand, and then we'll look at some of the fundamental analysis of Algorand, and you could draw your own conclusions. Okay, so we see basically the same thing with Zcash. We've mitigated these lows from March of 2020. Remember this COVID? This was the COVID era here, where everything just went to crap, just bled out. We've since mitigated the lows here, but unlike Zcash, which has had a recovery somewhat, Algorand is still down. It's still really down, but it's accumulating. It has institutional accumulation interests like Zcash. And let me show you how I know this. Okay, so I drew out a trading range. Why is this not? Okay, so I drew out a trading range here. I called this area down here where it mitigated the COVID lows the selling climax for this range. That's fair, right? That's a fair assessment, right? And so at the end of this 5 wave on this Elliott, this would be the automatic rally, and then come down, and then we had a nice little bounce off the 0.5 Fibonacci, and that would be the secondary test. And if you notice, the secondary test is exactly midline between the automatic rally and the selling climax. It's like a perfect 0.5 Fibonacci. And then we came back up on this second impulse wave, and we went through the trading range resistance, and we topped out here at this area, which if you draw a line from this area here, which would be the UTAD area of this redistribution range here, before we had this fall back down, this large Elliott wave, which finished out at the selling climax, we could draw a nice little macro resistance trend line here, a macro trend resistance to connect these two highs. And similarly on the bottom with the selling climax coming down from this UT above trading range resistance, we fell through this time the 0.5 fib line, but we stopped not at the trading range support, but between, say, the selling climax and the 0.5 Fibonacci, in effect creating a bottom support trend if you were to connect these two lows. And so putting these together, we see a solid symmetrical triangle forming. Symmetrical triangles coming out of a bear cycle, which is this macro bear cycle, which we've just come out of. That is accumulation. This denotes accumulation, institutional accumulation. And I contend that this selling climax area here, which is the mitigation point of the old COVID lows of 10 cents, 10.3 or whatever cents, we could surmise that this is a pretty solid bottom for Algorand. Now we might go beneath it. We might go at some point beneath it. depending on if the price action is indexed to Bitcoin and Bitcoin decides to take another nosedive. Of course, we can go through this, but this I believe would be like a terminal shakeout, like a spring area. If we go beneath the selling climax, it'll be like a TSO or something like that, like a terminal shakeout. But that probably won't happen until we get to the end, somewhere around the end or the confluence of this symmetrical triangle. That's usually what it is, and it's those are usually bear traps. But make no mistake, this looks like accumulation to me, especially if we begin to see if it continues to bounce within these trend support and resistance lines, the price action continues to trend within it. That is a sign of institutional accumulation, strong hand accumulation, and we see them testing the supply and demand within this structure. So, I mean, it looks like this thing is going to explode at some point. Here we see, for example, all these areas of bull power, predominant bull power, yet all of this power fails to rally over trading range resistance, this horizontal resistance line above the automatic rally point. All this effort is going back down, but yet we had a bounce off of the 0.5 Fibonacci. We didn't come back down right away to mitigate the selling climax. Instead, we went back up, and then we had some more bull power, and this constituted the UT, but this wasn't enough to push it past, this time, the macro trend resistance. So, the volume, they're keeping it in check. This is deliberate price manipulation, highs and lows, to facilitate absorption or accumulation. And then we see this lone spike. Suddenly we get this big supply spike here, which almost equals the preceding demand. But with this one we see we bounced off of the 0.5 fib line. We didn't come all the way back down to the macro trend support line. And this mitigated this small liquidity void right here, forming this head and shoulders. This is deliberate. And then we had an immediate answer from the bulls with an even larger spike of demand, and this failed to rally. Again, see this big wick? It failed to rally above the trading range support line, and that came right back down. We hugged the 0.5 fib, and then we came back down in here, creating in effect like a head and shoulders, or what some people call a hypodermic top here. But notice we did not fall beneath the macro trend support line. Instead, we wicked. I don't know if you could see this. Let's see if I can get rid of this. You can see the wick. See this red, this is a wick here. We wicked down to TRS, or trading range support, which is a selling climax. And this is where we had the macro mitigation. Remember how I told you price action always seeks its own, like water seeks its own level, whether up or down. So we had the full Christmas tree formation, but this is a wick. It's not a full body. The body stayed at the macro trend support line, but the wick went all the way down to trading range support. And that is strong bull power pushing back up. So again, we see cause and effect. We see all this effect, or momentum, or power, or engine revving, shares being bought up or whatever, or sold, but it's not able to push it down beneath support. So that's a sign of weakness. And then we came back up, and then we had a meager demand just to equalize it and keep it at macro trend resistance. So all of this talks about absorbing. And so theoretically, what should happen here is, I'm not saying that Algorand is going to explode overnight, but we should see some kind of play within the confines of this area here between the horizontal and diagonal support lines, and then eventually make its way back up here. But I don't suspect it to go through these two lines, which would be the resistance lines, the trend and the horizontal resistance lines. And then depending on what Bitcoin does and like the overall market sentiment, we could see a launch from here, or we can come back down for another bounce. but eventually all the supply is going to get absorbed. That's why these waves shrink more and more as we work our way towards the confluence of this symmetrical pattern. And then at some point, think of like water being absorbed by a sponge. At some point, the sponge is going to get full, the supply is going to get full, and when supply becomes scarce, because it's all been absorbed, what happens to the value? The value of the coin goes up, obviously. Demand is generated. They're going to do a demand test, and that's when we could see a break here and going up to clear these upper liquidity voids. Maybe this one up here, this old UTAD area of 45 cents. But that may not happen overnight, but it's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. So that's the technical analysis side of what's going on with Algorand. Now we look at the fundamentals and we can see some things with Algorand. Curiously, the SEC amends the Binance lawsuit, drops security claims for Solana and other cryptocurrencies. So yeah, it's saying, oh yeah, no big deal. All right, sorry about all the FUD. Sorry to make it bleed out. But yeah, Solana, Cardano, Matic, File, Atom, Sand, Mana. See, and this is July 30th. This wasn't too long ago. So remember, I did a whole series on traumatized tokens where we spoke about a lot of these. Cody, Axis Infinity. Now these are Sandbox, Decentraland, Axis Infinity. This is all metaverse stuff. These are metaverse games where you could earn currency playing the games. I guess I don't really know that much about metaverse outside of Shiba Inu, but I know it's going to be a hot item. I think in the years to come. Must be if the SEC has its crosshairs on it. And so, but notice that ALGO was also included in the number. Something about ALGO that piqued their interest and caused them to put a hit out on it. And so we find out that Algorand, we found a couple years ago. See, I didn't know this until I started doing research on Algorand. Marshall Islands to power world's first national digital currency with Algorand Technologies. And so the Marshall Islands are using the technology of Algorand to power their CBDC, basically. And yes, you heard it right. I said CBDC, their central banking digital currency. I mean, when you see a crypto like Algorand with a 10 billion, I believe it's a 10 billion max supply in the same rubric as the CBDC, man, you know that there's something cooking. There's something going on with it, because we're talking about the future. We're talking about the future of decentralized global finance, and there's all these different ecosystems, and Algorand was one chosen, and it, like I said, it has the distinction of being the first, the world's first national digital currency. So, this stuff isn't being made up. It's real. And this partially had to do with such a bleed out. You think that they want retail in this. So there's no telling what's going to be, where it's going to be 3 to 5 years from now, just like with Zcash. But one thing is for sure, actually, we know several things. We know that the SEC, it's been on the SEC's hit list. The SEC dropped its lawsuit against it. Curiously now that it's bled out completely and it's at rock bottom COVID levels. And we see strong hand composite operator interest in absorption. So Marshall Islands is just one country that's adopted its technologies to run its own fiat on. Could there be other countries? I don't know. Is it worth is it worth the risk of DCAing at these bargain basement prices? I mean, 11 cents to pick up some of this and just stack it away on a ledger or something like that. Yeah, I think so. I mean, that the money that I put in this could be money that I could go to a Vegas or the WinStar and piss away at the blackjack table. What's the difference? Take my kids to an amusement park, or I could buy some, I could use that money to just, some of the disposable income. Only invest disposable income, by the way. Diversify and only put in money you can afford to lose in this, and you'll be good. You'll be golden. So that's what I do. And so, yes, I am looking at Algorand. I'm going to purchase some Algorand, and I may start a DCA campaign with this as well, perhaps as aggressive if not more, since it's so low than I have been with Zcash. So anyway, that's what I got. If you got anything out of this, like, subscription, I appreciate it. I don't edit these videos, and I tell them as it is, and I don't shill. I don't have sponsors. I don't need sponsors. So what you see is what you get with me. But if you like this sort of technical analysis, no BS, no frills, technical analysis, then like, subscribe, and tell others about it. And yeah, so that's all I got. Safe and happy trading. Be safe. God bless. We'll talk to you soon. Adios, guys.